Let's talk about rebuilding ourselves. Not in the way you might rebuild a broken table or a cracked vase, because we're not broken, we're human. We don't need fixing, we need reclaiming, reshaping, and reshaping. Rebuilding yourself is an act of courage. It's standing in the rubble of what was and daring to imagine what could be. It's recognizing that the pieces scattered around you, the ones you thought were irreparable, are the same pieces that will create something stronger, something more authentic. But here's the thing about courage, it's messy. It doesn't always look like bold leaps and loud declarations. Sometimes courage looks like sitting quietly with the discomfort, asking yourself the hard questions, and being brave enough to answer them honestly. It's choosing to look in the mirror and say, I see you, all of you, and you are enough. Rebuilding starts with vulnerability. It's letting go of the armor we've used to protect ourselves from hurt, the perfectionism, the numbing, the silence, and instead showing up as we are. Vulnerability is not weakness, it's our most accurate measure of strength. It's saying, this is me, and I'm willing to be seen, even when it's uncomfortable. And while you're at it, give yourself permission to feel. Feel the anger, the grief, the frustration, and yes, even the joy. We cannot selectively numb our emotions. If we numb the pain, we numb the happiness too. So let yourself feel it all. Feelings are not your enemy, they're your guideposts. Compassion is your foundation, not just for others, but for yourself. Treat yourself the way you treat a dear friend who's been through a storm. Speak kindly to yourself, especially when it feels hardest to do so. It's in those moments of self-compassion that we create the space to heal and grow. Rebuilding isn't about becoming someone new. It's about uncovering who you've always been under the layers of fear, shame, and doubt. It's about reclaiming your worth, not because of what you've accomplished or endured, but because you exist. And remember, you don't have to rebuild alone. It's okay to ask for help, to lean on others, to let them see the real you. Connection doesn't weaken us, it fortifies us. True belonging starts when we let ourselves be truly known. When we think about rebuilding ourselves, it's easy to fall into the trap of seeing it as an admission of failure. But the truth is, rebuilding isn't about fixing something broken. It's about growing through what we've experienced and choosing to become more aligned with who we truly are. It's a powerful act of courage, one that requires us to confront the rubble of our lives and dare to imagine something new, something stronger. Courage, in this sense, isn't about being fearless. It's about acknowledging the fear, the pain, and the uncertainty and choosing to move forward anyway. When life throws us challenges, be it a heartbreak, a loss, or even a period of stagnation, we often feel shaken to our core. It can feel like the ground beneath us has crumbled, leaving us to stand in the wreckage of what we thought life should look like. This is where the journey of rebuilding begins, not with a grand plan or a perfectly laid out strategy, but with a single decision to rise. Rebuilding requires us to pause and take inventory of the pieces left behind. These pieces might look like shattered dreams, unexpected failures, or even parts of ourselves we've outgrown. It's tempting to sweep them aside, to try and start fresh without acknowledging what's been lost or learned. But true rebuilding isn't about erasing the past, it's about honoring it. It's about picking up those pieces, examining them, and deciding which ones still serve us and which ones we can leave behind. The process is deeply personal and rarely linear. Some days you might feel like you're making significant progress, only to wake up the next day feeling as though you're back at square one. That's okay. Rebuilding isn't a race, it's a journey. And every step, no matter how small, is a testament to your resilience. One of the greatest acts of courage in rebuilding is letting go of the need for certainty. As humans, we crave control. We want to know how things will turn out, to see the final picture before we start assembling the pieces. But rebuilding doesn't work that way. It's a process of discovery, one that requires trust in yourself, in the process, and in the possibilities you can't yet see. Courage also means being willing to confront uncomfortable truths. Sometimes, rebuilding forces us to reckon with choices we've made, patterns we've repeated, or beliefs we've held onto that no longer serve us. This reckoning can be painful, but it's also liberating. It's in these moments of honesty that we lay the foundation for something new, something more authentic. Rebuilding is not about perfection. In fact, it's often the imperfections that make the process so beautiful. Think about the Japanese art of kintsugi, where broken pottery is repaired with gold. The cracks aren't hidden, they're celebrated as part of the object's history, a testament to its strength and resilience. Similarly, our own cracks and scars are not something to be ashamed of. They're proof of our ability to endure, to adapt, and to grow. And let's not forget that rebuilding is an act of hope. To rebuild is to believe that the future holds possibilities worth striving for. It's an act of defiance against despair. A declaration that we are not defined by what's happened to us, but by how we choose to respond. Courage, at its core, is about choosing to show up. It's about deciding every single day that you are worth the effort it takes to rebuild. It's about holding space for the uncertainty, the discomfort, and the occasional setbacks, and continuing to move forward anyway. When you rebuild yourself, you're not just reconstructing what once was. You're creating something new, something uniquely yours. You're crafting a life that reflects your values, your experiences, and your aspirations. And in doing so, you're proving to yourself and to the world that even in the face of adversity, you have the strength to rise. When we think of courage, it's easy to imagine grand acts, heroic leaps into danger, bold declarations of truth, or triumphant victories over adversity. These moments make for powerful stories, but they're not the whole picture. Courage doesn't always look polished or impressive. Sometimes it's quiet, unglamorous, and deeply personal. Courage often begins in the most unexpected places within ourselves. It's not always about conquering external challenges. More often, it's about confronting the inner ones. It's facing the discomfort of our fears, insecurities, and doubts, and choosing to stay present, even when every instinct tells us to run, hide, or shut down. Imagine standing in front of a metaphorical mirror and truly seeing yourself, not just the parts you like or the persona you present to the world, but all of you. The messy, imperfect, uncertain you. Courage in this moment isn't about changing what you see, it's about choosing to accept it. To say, this is me, and that's enough. But let's be honest, this process is rarely clean or straightforward. Courage often feels like fumbling in the dark. It's messy because it forces us to wade through the complex layers of our emotions. It's acknowledging that you don't have all the answers and might never have them, but showing up anyway. Think about the moments in your life when you've had to make a hard decision, not the kind where the path is clear, but the kind where every option feels risky or uncertain. Maybe it was deciding to leave a toxic relationship, admitting a mistake, or pursuing a dream, despite the fear of failure. Those moments likely didn't come with clarity or confidence wrapped in a neat package. Instead, they were messy, filled with second-guessing, vulnerability, and doubt. Yet you moved forward. That's courage. Courage isn't about eliminating fear. It's about acknowledging its presence and choosing to act anyway. It's saying, I'm scared, but this matters too much to let fear dictate my choices. It's understanding that fear is a natural part of being human and that it doesn't have to control you. There's another layer to this messiness, the willingness to sit with discomfort. Our culture often glorifies quick fixes and instant solutions, but true courage requires patience. It's sitting with the uneasy, sometimes painful feelings that come with growth and change. It's resisting the urge to numb or distract yourself and instead choosing to process what's happening. This discomfort can take many forms. It might look like acknowledging the role you've played in a situation, even if it's painful to admit. It might mean allowing yourself to grieve something you've lost or feeling the weight of an unmet expectation. These moments are messy because they're raw and real. They strip away the facade and force us to confront the truths we'd rather avoid. But here's the thing, the messiness of courage is what makes it transformative. Each time you choose to face discomfort instead of avoiding it, you grow stronger. You learn that you're capable of handling hard things and that the world doesn't bend when you let yourself be vulnerable. Courage also requires honesty with yourself and, when necessary, with others. This kind of honesty isn't always easy. It might mean admitting that you don't have it all together or that you need help. It could mean having a difficult conversation where you risk rejection or misunderstanding. Honesty is inherently messy because it exposes us. It strips away the safety of pretense and leaves us open to whatever comes next. And yet, this messiness is also where connection happens. When you show up with courage, even in your messiest moments, you create the possibility for deeper relationships with yourself and others. When you say, "I'm struggling, but I'm here," you invite others to meet you where you are. This vulnerability fosters empathy, understanding, and true connection. Courage is messy because it's not a one-time act, it's a practice. It's a choice you make again and again. Some days you'll feel strong and capable, ready to take on whatever comes your way. Other days, courage might feel like barely holding it together. Both are valid, and both are part of the journey. Ultimately, the messiness of courage is what makes it so powerful. It's in the imperfections, the vulnerability, and the willingness to show up despite the fear that we find our strength. It's not about being fearless or perfect, it's about being real. And when you embrace the mess, you discover that courage isn't something you achieve, it's something you embody, one messy, brave step at a time. When we hear the word vulnerability, many of us instinctively recoil. We associate it with weakness, with being exposed, with the risk of being hurt. But what if I told you that vulnerability is, in fact, one of the most profound expressions of strength? Vulnerability is the willingness to be seen fully and authentically without the shields of perfection or pretense. It's about showing up as you are, not as you think you should be. And that takes incredible courage. Imagine walking into a room and saying, "Here I am. These are my fears, my flaws, my dreams, and my truths." That level of honesty isn't easy, but it's powerful. Why? Because vulnerability is where connection begins. When we allow ourselves to be seen, we invite others to see us truly and deeply. Think about the relationships in your life that feel the most meaningful. Chances are, they're the ones where you've shared your authentic self, the messy, unpolished, unfiltered version. Those are the relationships built on trust, empathy, and mutual respect. And they only exist because someone dared to be vulnerable first. But vulnerability isn't just about connection, it's also the birthplace of growth. You can't build a meaningful life without taking risks in EV. Every risk requires vulnerability. Whether you're pursuing a new career, starting a relationship, or chasing a dream, you're stepping into the unknown. And the unknown is inherently vulnerable. It's where failure is a possibility. But here's the truth, there's no success without the risk of failure. No progress without the risk of setbacks. Vulnerability is also tied to creativity and innovation. Think about any great work of art, any groundbreaking idea, or any moment of inspiration that's moved you. Behind it is someone who was brave enough to put themselves out there to create something without guarantees of acceptance or understanding. Creativity demands vulnerability because it's an act of exposing your inner world to the outer one. For many of us, though, vulnerability feels terrifying because it comes with the risk of rejection. The fear of being judged, misunderstood, or dismissed can be paralyzing. And so we build walls. We hide behind perfectionism, numbing behaviors, or indifference, telling ourselves that it's safer not to try than to risk failing. But here's the paradox: the more we protect ourselves from vulnerability, the more isolated and disconnected we become. Those walls we build to keep out pain also keep out joy, love, and belonging. True strength lies in breaking down those walls. It's not about being invincible, it's about being real. Strength is admitting when you're scared, asking for help when you need it, and saying, "I don't know," when you don't have the answers. It's about embracing uncertainty, knowing that life's greatest rewards often lie on the other side of discomfort. Being vulnerable also requires us to confront shame. Shame tells us that we're not good enough, that our flaws make us unworthy of love and connection. But shame can't survive in the light of vulnerability. When we share our stories, when we speak our truths, we strip shame of its power. We remind ourselves and others that imperfection is not a barrier to worthiness, it's part of being human. It's important to understand that vulnerability isn't about oversharing or exposing yourself recklessly. It's about intentional openness, choosing to share your truth with those who've earned the right to hear it. Vulnerability with boundaries is a sign of respect for yourself and your journey. So how can you embrace vulnerability in your life? Recognize what makes you feel vulnerable and ask yourself why. Understanding your fears is the first step toward overcoming them. Be kind to yourself as you navigate vulnerability. Remember that being vulnerable doesn't mean being weak, it means being brave. You don't have to dive headfirst into vulnerability. Begin with small, meaningful steps like sharing a thought or feeling with someone you trust. Instead of seeing failure as something to avoid, view it as an opportunity to learn and grow. Vulnerability becomes less intimidating when you embrace the idea that mistakes are part of the journey. Share your authentic self with people who value and support you. Surround yourself with those who create safe spaces for vulnerability. Every time you show up authentically, take a moment to acknowledge your bravery. Vulnerability is hard, and every step you take is worth celebrating. Ultimately, vulnerability is not about being fearless, it's about feeling the fear and showing up anyway. It's about understanding that the things that make you vulnerable, your emotions, your imperfections, your dreams, are also the things that make you human, relatable, and deeply worthy of love and connection. When you embrace vulnerability, you open the door to a richer, more fulfilling life. You allow yourself to be seen, and in doing so, you invite others to do the same. And that's where true strength lies, not in the absence of fear, but in the presence of courage. We are emotional beings by nature, wired to feel and process a vast spectrum of emotions. Yet when faced with pain, discomfort, or vulnerability, our instinct is often to protect ourselves by shutting down or numbing what we feel. It's understandable numbing offers temporary relief, a way to avoid the sharp edges of life's hardest moments. But here's the truth: when we numb the pain, we also numb the joy, the connection, and the growth that come from truly experiencing life. To rebuild yourself, you must be willing to feel everything. Every emotion has a purpose and a message, even the ones that feel overwhelming or inconvenient. Grief teaches us about love and loss. Anger signals injustice or unmet needs. Fear highlights areas of uncertainty. Joy reminds us of what matters most. Each feeling is a teacher, guiding us toward understanding ourselves and our experiences more deeply. When we numb our emotions, whether through distraction, perfectionism, overwork, or substances, we create a barrier between ourselves and our reality. Numbing might feel like a protective layer, but it prevents us from engaging fully with life. It's like watching a movie with the volume turned off. You might see the images, but you miss the meaning and depth of the story. Over time, numbing can lead to disconnection from others, from our values, and most critically, from ourselves. We become strangers to our own hearts, unsure of what we truly feel or need. And in that disconnection, we lose the very tools we need to heal and rebuild. Rebuilding starts with allowing yourself to feel, even when it's hard. It's a process of leaning into emotions rather than running from them. This doesn't mean being consumed by them, it means acknowledging their presence and exploring what they're trying to tell you. When sadness washes over you, let it come. Sit with it. Cry if you need to. Tears are not a sign of weakness, they're a release, a way of processing and moving through grief. When anger rises, instead of suppressing it, ask yourself, what is this anger protecting? What boundary has been crossed? When joy bursts forth, don't dismiss it as fleeting. Hold on to it. Savor it. Let it remind you of what makes life worth rebuilding for. Feeling your emotions doesn't mean you have to face them all at once. It's okay to take it one step at a time. Journaling can be a powerful way to explore your feelings. Writing down what you're experiencing without judgment can help you process and understand your emotions. Talking to a trusted friend, therapist, or loved one can also provide a safe space to express what you're going through. Sometimes speaking your emotions out loud allows you to make sense of them in a way that internal reflection cannot. Mindfulness and meditation can help you stay present with your emotions without being overwhelmed by them. Practicing mindfulness teaches you to observe your feelings without attaching judgment or fear, creating space for compassion and clarity. Feeling your emotions is not just about surviving the hard moments, it's about growing through them. Painful experiences often lead to the most profound insights and transformations. When you allow yourself to feel fully, you open the door to understanding what you need to heal and move forward. Imagine your emotions as waves in the ocean. When you resist them, you're like a swimmer fighting against the current, exhausted, overwhelmed, and stuck. But when you let go and ride the waves, you move with them, allowing them to carry you to calmer waters. Every emotion you feel, no matter how difficult, is a resource for rebuilding. Grief can motivate you to honor what you've lost by creating something meaningful in its place. Anger can inspire action and change, helping you set boundaries or fight for what matters. Joy and hope remind you of what's possible, fueling your resilience and determination. To rebuild yourself, you must embrace the full spectrum of your humanity. That means letting go of the idea that some emotions are bad or wrong. There are no bad emotions, only emotions we haven't yet learned to understand or navigate. Rebuilding isn't neat or linear. It's messy, unpredictable, and often uncomfortable. But it's in the messiness that we find meaning. Allowing yourself to feel everything creates the foundation for a life built on authenticity and courage. So the next time you're tempted to numb or avoid your emotions, pause. Take a deep breath. Remind yourself that feeling is not the enemy numbing is. Feeling is your path to healing, and healing is the cornerstone of rebuilding. Let yourself feel everything, because in doing so, you reclaim your ability to live fully, love deeply, and rebuild authentically. When we talk about rebuilding ourselves, we often think about external actions, new goals, habits, or environments. But real rebuilding starts from within, and at the heart of this internal process lies self-compassion. It's the foundation upon which everything else rests, the essential ingredient for true growth, healing, and transformation. Self-compassion is the practice of extending the same kindness, understanding, and care to ourselves that we would offer to a close friend or loved one in distress. It's about replacing harsh self-criticism with understanding, judgment with empathy, and perfectionism with acceptance. It's not about excusing mistakes or ignoring areas for improvement, but about recognizing that being human means being imperfect, and that's okay. Rebuilding often follows experiences of failure, loss, or struggle. These moments can leave us feeling vulnerable, unworthy, or stuck in a cycle of self-blame. Without self-compassion, we risk becoming our own harshest critics, magnifying our pain rather than alleviating it. When we practice self-compassion, we create a safe space within ourselves to heal. This safe space allows us to acknowledge our mistakes and challenges without shame. It gives us the courage to confront our pain, learn from it, and move forward. It reminds us that setbacks are not permanent failures, but stepping stones toward growth. Self-kindness means speaking to ourselves with warmth and care, even when we fall short of our expectations. Instead of berating ourselves with thoughts like, "Why did I do that?" or "I'll never be good enough," we might say, "It's okay. Everyone makes mistakes, and I'm learning." Rebuilding requires this gentler voice. It's hard to move forward if we're weighed down by self-judgment. Kindness gives us permission to acknowledge where we are without fear, which is the first step toward where we want to go. Often, during moments of struggle, we feel isolated in our pain. We might think, "I'm the only one going through this," or "No one else has made these mistakes," but self-compassion reminds us that pain, failure, and imperfection are universal. Everyone experiences them in some form. Rebuilding is easier when we recognize that we're not alone. Understanding that our challenges are part of the shared human experience can be deeply comforting. It connects us to others and reduces the shame that often keeps us stuck. Mindfulness involves being present with our emotions without being consumed by them. It's about acknowledging our pain without letting it define us. Instead of saying, "I failed, so I am a failure," mindfulness helps us say, "I failed at this task, but that doesn't diminish my worth as a person." In the context of rebuilding, mindfulness allows us to see things as they are not better or worse than they actually are. It prevents us from spiraling into negative thought patterns and helps us stay focused on the path forward. Start small. Replace critical thoughts with kind ones. When you catch yourself thinking something negative about yourself, pause and reframe it. For example, if you think, "I'm so bad at this," try saying, "I'm learning, and it's okay to make mistakes." Remind yourself that everyone struggles. When you're feeling low, think about people you admire or care about. Are they perfect? No, they face challenges too, just like you. This perspective helps normalize your feelings and reduces the sense of isolation. Take time to observe your emotions without judgment. Journaling or meditating can help you explore what you're feeling and why. The key is to approach your emotions with curiosity rather than criticism. Think about what you'd say to a friend who was in your position. Write those words down and practice saying them to yourself. Often we're much kinder to others than we are to ourselves, but there's no reason why we shouldn't extend the same kindness inward. Let go of the need to have it all figured out. Rebuilding isn't about creating a perfect version of yourself, it's about embracing your humanity. Mistakes are part of the process, they don't define you. Self-compassion doesn't mean you have to do it all alone. Reach out to friends, family, or professionals when you need help. Being compassionate with yourself means recognizing when you need support and allowing yourself to receive it. When we approach rebuilding with self-compassion, we shift our focus from what's wrong with us to what's possible for us. We stop being adversaries to ourselves and become allies. This shift unlocks resilience, creativity, and hope. Self-compassion doesn't just soften the edges of our pain, it strengthens our foundation. It gives us the confidence to face challenges, the clarity to learn from them, and the courage to grow beyond them. It transforms the way we see ourselves not as a collection of flaws, but as individuals worthy of love, growth, and belonging. Rebuilding yourself is a deeply personal journey, but it is not a solitary one. Human beings are inherently wired for connection. From the moment we are born, we seek bonds that nurture us, give us strength, and provide us with a sense of belonging. When we're in the process of rebuilding, whether from a setback, a loss, or a major life shift, connection is one of the most powerful tools we have. We often hesitate to reach out when we're struggling. Maybe we fear judgment or rejection. Maybe we think our pain is a burden to others. Or maybe we feel the need to prove we can handle everything on our own. But here's the truth: isolation does not make us stronger. It magnifies our struggles, silences our inner voice, keeps us stuck in cycles of doubt and shame. Rebuilding starts with a willingness to be seen. It's about allowing others into our process, showing them not just the polished exterior, but the cracks and fractures as well. True connection comes from authenticity, not perfection. It's in those moments when we let down our guard and say, "I'm struggling," or "I don't have it all figured out," that we create space for real relationships to flourish. When we allow others to support us, we share the weight of our challenges. Connection doesn't eliminate the difficulty, but it makes the burden feel lighter. Friends, family, mentors, or even a supportive community can offer perspectives we might not have considered, reminding us that we don't have to figure everything out alone. One of the most healing aspects of connection is realizing that our struggles are not unique. While our circumstances may differ, the emotions we feel, fear, sadness, frustration, are universal. When someone says, "I've been there," it doesn't take away our pain, but it does help us feel less isolated in it. People who care about us can hold us accountable in ways that are supportive rather than judgmental. They remind us of our goals when we feel tempted to give up and cheer us on when we take even the smallest steps forward. Their belief in us can reignite our belief in ourselves. Reaching out isn't just about saying, "I'm struggling," it's also about identifying what kind of support you need. Maybe you need someone to listen without offering advice, or perhaps you're looking for practical help. Being clear about your needs helps others show up for you in meaningful ways. Not everyone will have the capacity or empathy to support you during a vulnerable time, and that's okay. Seek out people who create safe spaces, those who listen without judgment, offer compassion, and respect your boundaries. Connection is a two-way street. While it's important to lean on others during rebuilding, offering your presence and support in return strengthens bonds and creates mutual trust. Sometimes the act of helping someone else can also remind you of your own resilience. Belonging is more than just being part of a group, it's feeling truly seen, heard, and valued for who you are. When you're rebuilding yourself, the need for belonging becomes even more essential. Belonging doesn't mean conforming or pretending to be someone you're not. It means finding spaces where you can show up authentically, even in your messiest, most uncertain moments. This might look like joining a support group, reconnecting with old friends, or cultivating new relationships. It might mean leaning into family bonds or finding mentors who inspire and guide you. Belonging reminds you that you are never alone, no matter how isolating life's challenges may feel. When we connect with others during times of rebuilding, something transformative happens. We grow. Relationships challenge us to expand our perspectives, step outside our comfort zones, and practice empathy and vulnerability. Through connection, we learn that our value is not tied to our accomplishments or the state of our lives, but to our inherent humanity. In connecting with others, we also strengthen our relationship with ourselves. As we share our stories, we begin to see our own courage and resilience through the eyes of those who care about us. We start to believe in our ability to rebuild because others believe in us. Connection requires courage. It's not easy to say, "I need help," or to let someone witness our pain. But the act of reaching out is itself a declaration of strength. It's saying, "I value myself enough to seek support. I am worth being seen and cared for." Connection doesn't mean having all the answers or presenting a perfect version of yourself. It means showing up as you are, even when you feel messy, uncertain, or vulnerable. It's in these moments of raw authenticity that the deepest connections are formed. So as you rebuild, remember this: you don't have to do it alone. The hands you reach for might be the same ones that help you rise. Let connection fortify you. Let it remind you of your inherent worth, your strength, and your belonging.